Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you once again for joining us today for the third episode of IET India's Digital Conversations on Adapt, Improvise, and Overcome the Essential Skills Post the Pandemic. We all know the importance of skilling and that it is a continuous process. During the time of global crisis, it is essential to understand what will be the new work processes, what is the new normal, and that we might have to endure this pandemic for a longer time. We are fortunate and thankful to the panel of experts who have joined us today for this session. Over the next 90 minutes, they'll not only share their perspectives and insight about the scenario timelines and the essential skills needed to overcome such times, but they'll also provide answers to the questions that you have. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Suman Bhaumik. I lead the events for IT in India. I'm sure you'll find this session extremely beneficial and interactive, and hence we have kept maximum time for question and answers. So, without any further delay, kindly allow me to introduce you to our first speaker and the moderator for this session, Mr. Avesh Kumar Jha. Avesh is the Senior Vice President ODPM at Hinduja Global Solutions. At HGS, he is responsible for the leadership development, talent development across all geographies and levels, and D&I initiatives. I pass it on to you now, Avesh.
All right, thank you so much, for Suman for welcoming me as well as giving that technical brief to everyone. Um, and for those who are kind of possibly wondering about my looks versus the picture that was posted, so I had a urge to kind of go and shave myself, but then I realized is that my new look is actually very aligned to the theme of this particular discussion, which is adapt, um, improvise, and overcome. So I'm adapting to a situation where the barbers and salons are not available at these days. I'm improvising with my look. So last week I used to look a little differently. This week a little differently, and I'll experiment definitely next week with some other look. And overcoming. So I'm overcoming the criticism of my best critiques at home, who are generally pushing me to kind of go back to my normal avatar. So, and enough of the commercial about me. In fact, I'm immensely happy today to kind of moderate and host this particular conversation for you all, because I have two very distinguished panelists with me. And while you would have already received the information on their bios, but it'll be unjust for me not to kind of introduce them. So Gaurav comes with over 12 plus years of experience. Currently, he is the president for corporate development at Upgrad, and he's been kind of helping, government, educational institution, etc., in his current as well as future roles with KPMG and PricewaterhouseCoopers, and even Reliance Jio for that matter. And then I have Suchindra, who comes with almost 2 decades of experience with him, and he also has been, and currently he holds the position of an executive director with EY, and he's also been in this field of supporting governments, corporates, enterprises, educational institutions on the skilling piece. And yes, yours truly has about 25 years of experience. So I see a very good turnout, and I'm also told is that there'll be a lot of people who will be joining in as we continue to have this conversation. So what we expect in this conversation is that we only kind of constitute to close to about 56, 60 years of experience. But if I take the experience of the audience group, then it is definitely running into many centuries. So request you all to, at times, definitely when you think that you have any valuable points to kind of put into the conversation, please do raise your hand and bring that up. And also please do ask your questions. We will try to do justice to as many as that we can take. And therefore, without much ado, let me kind of jump into the first question that I have for my panelist. And I would like to go alphabetically. So Gaurav first and then maybe Suchindra. So we are now in the 5th week of almost at the end of the fifth week of the pandemic and the fourth week of lockdown. So, what is it that you are seeing as the future realities that are emerging for the enterprise as well as for the academias and the uh, the future of work, which is the current students for today?
Hi, thanks, Avish. Thanks for the quick introduction and also the context setting. And welcome to all the audience on this online platform. I think one of the biggest shifts that has happened is in the mindset of the people. Digital technologies have been around for quite some time. All these digital meetup tools have been around for all this time, but I don't recall a time, in the past where I had, let's say, more than two such video calls in a week or three video calls in a week. And they actually used to be video calls with, physical hard infrastructure sitting in a video conferencing room, right? This has probably been 4 weeks of constant Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Google Duo, Hangouts, and now an Airmeet Meet. And I guess this is probably the first time most of us are using digital as our basic means of survival. It's been always around. We've always used that, as a support tool, but not as a central tool. And I think that has been one of the biggest shifts, right? Uh, what has also happened is, I think these 4 weeks, 5 weeks, it's a time to rethink on how the world has existed with some of these tools or without these tools. A lot of tools which we've taken for granted today are not even required. So I haven't started my car in the last 5 weeks, and I've been getting messages that you should switch it on at least once. Now, I don't recall the last time such a thing happened, right? And as EY, I used to be literally on a flight taking down to one part of the country or the other, at least 4 days a week, living literally out of a suitcase. And so did most of my team members. We've been serving people all over the country. And probably at that point of time, we never thought we could do even 50% of that remotely. That was a given. We were just agreeing blindly to that paradigm of working face to face. Today, are we operating at 100% of our efficiency? Possibly no. You're mute.
Yeah, I just saw a couple of messages coming in that they are unable to hear you. So I'm just kind of checking again. Are you able to hear Suchindra, please? Can somebody confirm that for us? Okay, so I have Dhaval Joshi. Yes, yes, yes. A lot of people are. So I think a couple of folks, you're having problem with your system. I hope you have logged into Google Chrome. Okay, on the Google Chrome platform, because that is what best works for AirMeet. Over to you, Suchindra. Sorry.
So, we've come down to the reality that yes, we can still deliver similar outcomes as earlier with probably much less of travel, much less of carbon footprint, and probably as a consultant and people, I'm sure there will be some consultant or consulting industry professionals in the audience. They can actually deliver without literally killing their work-life balances and stay at home, spend some family time. That's on the personal front. But I guess what is also happening at the same time, while it's probably manageable for personal people, I guess the bigger challenge is yet to come. We've seen, I work in consulting, we work with a lot of industries. We've seen a lot of spends being put on hold. A lot of projects we were talking about or which were under implementation are either put on hold or have been paused altogether. Organizations are hoarding cash. I won't say hoarding cash, but conserving cash because they just don't know what the situation is going to be once the lockdown opens. Uh, so a lot of marketing spends have gone down, a lot of project spends have gone down, capital spends have literally struggled. Literally no capital spend happening, partially because there's nobody to do those capital projects. Secondly, like I said, companies, we just don't know whether that capital, all that capex is being done with certain expansion in mind. Now we all been hearing news that economies across the world are going to be stuttering. So while today our RBI governor went ahead and said 7.4% growth rate next year, which is like a stretch of imagination by any possible ways that you could think of.
And which I guess he was, and which I am guess that he was quoting the projection given by the IMF for in April 2020.
Yes. So the last one that came from World Bank is 1.9% growth in India, and we are actually one of the very few economies which are still expected to grow, even if by
Mhm.
2%, right? If I just look
So
at
you know
some,
what? Sorry to interrupt, Suchindra, but I also read that report. It says that this year it will go to 4.2. It is then going to go further down to 1.9. It is only in the third year where it is going to come to 7.4.
right,
But yeah, at this juncture, I completely agree that it is, you know, it is too stretched an imagination.
if you just look at pure numbers, so these are a lot of anecdotal evidences. If you look at hardcore numbers, you have two indexes: the manufacturing PMI and the services PMI.
Mhm.
Manufacturing PMI, if you look at just from February to March, it's shown slight dip. It's went from 54.5 to around 51.4, still on the positive territory. But the biggest hit has been the services PMI. This is the services purchasing manager index. It's more a measure of what are people, are they going to spend money on any sort of purchases?
Right, right.
That number has gone down by almost 800 basis points from 57.5. It's gone below 50, 49.3, and below 50 is assumed to be, supposed to be in a contraction phase. This is where the economy is going to go slow. And this is services, which is, in the Indian context, the biggest sector to look at, right? And what possibly would mean is a lot of, and this has been happening, EY being one of them. Most of the consulting organizations have put freezing on hiring. A lot of salaries or salary raises have been stopped, promotions have been halted. Uh, in short, for short term right now, but it might prolong if the recession prolongs. So that's something that we've been seeing happening over this
Right,
time.
right, right, right. So yeah, great, great. Thank you for giving us that understanding at a macro level in terms of what the challenges are. Let us kind of now move to Gaurav. And the question was, Gaurav, is that in this 5 week of the pandemic and 4 week of being in a lockdown, what are certain future realities that you are seeing that are emerging out of it? If you can go to unmute and then share your
Oh,
thoughts.
sure. So I have a disclaimer. First time it's a school habit. Whenever teacher asks you a tough question, run away. So the moment Avesh asked me, I had no choice. Uh, coming back to the question you asked, Avesh, I guess very relevant, and I will try to respond it in the context, of the skilling and job and future of work and
Mhm.
upskilling context. Uh, as there is more of enough data coming in, today, if you notice, government has asked Ministry of Labor, for example, to start compiling salary curves and trackings as a data point, because even at decision maker level, there is a realization that it is going to happen. Most of the employers may be avoiding the news at this moment because it will unnecessary or necessary, whatever, warrant extremely bad press. So while at senior leadership level or the decision makers level, the conversation is happening in terms of cost cutting, in terms of manpower, retrenchment. So and the way I see it is not figure of imagination. It is happening. It's a matter of time once we see a widespread, uh, you know, one, cost cutting, two, freeze on further recruitment, three,
Mhm.
retrenchment. As
Mhm.
Sujindra rightly said, and if I have to just convert the data point into action, the services PMI, fair to assume that services sector will face maximum brunt, because it has in the organized space, if I may make that disclaimer. Because if you notice, most of the industries which have been hit today badly and are expected to face the brunt in coming times, hospitality, you know, tourism, most of the cab aggregator business, QSR, food and beverages, entertainment, public entertainment spaces, retail, the physical retail. All of these are obvious hits, which will, and these are some of the bigger employers in organized sector. So they will, by no exception, face one of the three which I outlined: cost cutting, you know, freeze on recruitment, as well as retrenchment. After effect of this would then come to the financial services sector, which has greater exposure to this. And while today, again, I'm taking cues from what Suchindra mentioned. RBI governor has talked about 50,000 crores to NBFCs, and there was reported bringing down to 3.75 for banking sector. But that doesn't mean banking sector's existing appetite to give money will be going multifold. No, I don't see that happening in immediate terms, because the exposure they have will start, taking their toll because of the lockdown and the slowdown in purchasing behavior, or the economic activity. So NPAs are expected to go ahead. So these are some of the harsh realities.
Right.
The way I see, I will refrain from talking about unorganized, informal employment, because the what is happening. I guess someone very aptly has written today that amidst all this, did we shortchange informal employees or
Hmm.
unorganized worker? The whole process seems to have shortchanged them. So,
Right.
but that's a much larger conversation. So that's my initial thoughts on that.
Okay. So great. Thank you, both you gentlemen, for your inputs. So yes, in summary, the reality is that the going forward, the recent times will definitely be tough and challenging for many of us. At the same time, it is also going to bring in new opportunities, because we've seen it in the past also. After world wars, companies and countries and economies have emerged to become the economic horsepower for the world. And also we have seen, like, as late as I think 2008-9 recession, or on no beyond after that, when the SARS uh, had struck the world. Is that is where, in fact, if you look at in China, Alibaba took off as the largest e-retail company. So this also I consider it to be almost like a tectonic shift in the industry, in the corporate, in the world, in the economy, for that matter, because this is going to shift the way that the industries are kind of organized today, or they have their market positions, etc., and all that stuff. Because even while we are talking about is that on one side there are few industries, like specifically the travel, hospitality, which are going to kind of feel the burn. But at the same time, if you look at telecom, technology, anything to do with digitization, automation is going to pick up. E-retail is going to pick up. And again, like yesterday I saw a particular post on LinkedIn, and I think that all those who are listening, possibly you can also go to the web and try that out. Stackline has come up with a complete list of the 100 e-retail businesses which will kind of go for a really zoom, and 100 which are going to come down. So it's not that everything is going to be gloomy and challenging. There will be opportunities. And also, I guess, is that this is the time when a lot of, I would say, industries are going to rethink, reimagine, and the modus operandi is going to change. And thereby, we will see definitely in terms of is that what kind of new opportunities are getting available for all of us. So great. Now that we have kind of got past of the macro level in terms of what is the future reality, my next question will be that for this audience group, which comprises of the enterprise, the academia, and as I said, the future of work tomorrow, um, what is the specific challenges that people will have when it comes to their skills and competencies? All right, and what is it that they need to start doing differently so that they stay current and relevant? So, and this time in no order, between the two, whoever wants to pick that question, feel free.
Let's
Sridhar, you
give,
can take it. Sridhar,
no, no, let's give this chance before you run away again.
okay, okay. So good question, good question. And I guess we have been, three of us have discussed this earlier as well. So from the skilling side, or from the job perspective side, I will not be mincing words, and I'm not trying to spread pessimism, but difficult times. for one who are entering workforce. Extremely difficult time because as I understand, most of the campuses are going back on their offers. They are either postponing or taking it back, and that's pretty much a reality. And organizations in terms of cost cutting, at some point of time, as I said earlier, we'll start talking about retrenchment. So one big thing which we keep and which has happened, and there is more than enough historical evidence of industry behavior, employers' behavior in these tough times, is to focus on their core. So the flab, the new projects, new initiatives, domains, functions which are not necessarily core to their top and bottom line will start taking a hit. As it happens, if you notice, and I'm relating something with macro today, TCS result came and TCS has given very poor direction for the next quarter. Because, for example, IT takes one of the major hit whenever you have cash crunch because people go slow on their IT initiatives. And that essentially means it will have a job impact on the kind of numbers IT sector will hire for. Uh, because this is IET, and I assume there are many engineers and people from academia here. We all know that top 10 IT companies are one of the biggest recruiter in engineering institutions most of the times, and fair to assume together they hire close to 500,000 or a little less than that. But it will be fair to assume that that number should go anywhere from 40 to 60% down this year. So these are some of the real world issues, and what can one do? I guess the way I would try to answer is one has to be looking to acquire horizontal skills. So if I'm an engineer for that matter, does it make sense to do a program management? If I'm a program management guy, does it make sense to take a data science the program? If I have been a management, if I'm an infra guy, does it make sense to understand a bit of its application in sector beyond which I am in? I may be today an EPC guy, but should I look at real estate for that matter? And I'm trying to build an example. It will also depend on which geography the person is, what are his or her interest areas, and so on. But definitely look to acquire horizontal skills, I guess, because that just hedges your risk against the particular function you are in. I definitely think so. Second, look at and particularly for the freshers who are going to workforce, look at in case you have issues on your job offers, in case your offer dates are getting pushed, placements are not happening. Don't sit at home. Don't wait for it. My suggestion would be go seek internships. If need be, do at a extreme, and there is no shame in saying, okay, my average placement could have been probably 10 lakh rupee a year, 7 lakh rupee a year, but I'm getting an internship which gives me just 18,000 bucks a month. So be it. I guess the good thought would be that people should not be shying away from it. Go and list yourself on every possible freelance place wherever there is a work opportunity coming in, because people will look for low cost work. People will look for low cost support in such times. Once they are not ready to hire more number of people at a certain cost, and that could be a possible opportunity. So idea should be, I guess, the takeaways: diversify in your existing skill set, invest in yourself over next few months. By all means, if you are at receiving end of unfortunate job loss or not getting a job in current times, please go and do some freelance, do some internship, reach out to people. Don't be shying away. And thankfully, there is more than enough platform where you can avail these things. You can reach out to the right set of people.
Great. Very, very, very valuable inputs there, Gaurav. Let's move to Suchendra and see what he has for the audience.
So I guess Gaurav spoke about the freshers. I work in education sector, and one of the things that I've been listening from people, there are companies which are coming back and saying we'll delay the joining date. Some offers are getting rescinded, but at the same time, companies like Byju's, it's been one of the large employers in the IITs, for example. Byju's has actually asked all the people it had given offers to join them remotely as of today. Even before the final semester examinations have happened, and so they've just given almost 300 people a remote offering, because this is a godsend opportunity for them. And there are multiple organizations like Byju's, e-commerce companies have been doing it. You know, so again, Flipkart has hired almost 50 plus data scientists to look at the kind of data which is being generated in this day and age today. And they're trying to get information from different media platforms and things so that they can upsell Flipkart offerings to them. So every disruption comes with its own opportunities potentially. Flipkart had data scientists even earlier, but I guess this is a completely new stream and new valuable data which is being created and which they are trying to mine in. If I talk about education again, I had seen quite a lot of faculty from different universities and colleges among the audience. If I look at them, for example, most of the universities have moved into online classrooms without really thinking about what they're trying to do. So for today, online classroom is only a functional automation of what they were doing in classroom. So just the way they were teaching in classroom, they're doing the same thing online. But the paradigm has changed, right? Universities will probably require a lot of people trying to help them think through the entire digital and content strategy. Now, those are new roles which will come in. Earlier, nobody in a university really thought about कि ऐसा किसी role की जरूरत है. The university's role was to go get into a class, teach, take assessments and come out. Today, that has suddenly changed. Almost all edtech companies today, and maybe Gaurav can collaborate to this, is they are overwhelmed with the kind of inquiries and with the kind of usage that they've seen. Unprecedented, right? So there are opportunities here. I guess what is important now, everyone, there are almost 8 lakh engineers passing out in the country every year, right? Out of those 8 lakh people, probably 50% of them don't even, and it's not their fault, it's probably a fault of the engineering colleges and places where they don't learn much. But the remaining 4 lakh people, what can they, can they weave the bigger story together? Everyone can do coding in Python, everyone can do coding in C or Java, whatever that is. Can they create a real world use case of what they are trying to do? With a change environment, how many of them can actually go to a university and say, here I can actually help you create a complete digital thinking behind these classrooms, create a content and everything, right? Now, those are the skills which will be very, very handy in these times. And these are skills, thinking, analysis, breaking a bigger problem into small chunks is something that will be required even post this pandemic. This is exactly the time when you could work on creating those skills and building them on, think through them. Otherwise, if you would have, a lot of those freshers, if you would have got into jobs, I'm not taking away from any of the jobs, but a lot of those jobs are very, they may be IT industry, banking industry, they're very mundane, routine jobs. And you won't have an opportunity to think beyond them because the workload. Today, you have that opportunity to think, you have the opportunity to evaluate. There are, all these edtech players giving you free offers, courses which were like 1 lakh, 2 lakh, even 50,000 rupees. Today, you're getting them for free. You could evaluate those platforms, think of what you want to do in longer term, and then probably put the money where the where your mind is. So make best of these opportunities which have emerged out because of this disruption today, and probably it will help you in the long run when the economy is going to bounce back. 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, we saw it after the 2002 dot-com boom. We saw it after 2008 financial boom. Economies would, they are people. In India, 1.3 billion people, globally 7 billion people. They require services. They require, goods and functions. And once things stabilize, probably all the good things about travel, leisure, hospitality, each of them will bounce back. Some in 6 months, some in a year, some in 2 years. Make use of this time to be ready for which sector opens up and at what point of time.
Great, thank you. So what I see here, what I hear between both of you is that utilize this time, this downtime in some way to invest in yourself, to diversify, to work towards acquiring horizontal skills so that you increase your probability of staying employed, or even if not employed, at least continue to gain experience. Okay, so that and no experience goes for waste. So you can actually capitalize that as and when. So that is one thing, and a couple of things that struck chord with me is that I represent a global outsourcing company, and yes, when the pandemic struck us, yes, there was for the initial stages a little bit of women that got created, but post which, the moment that we were able to swiftly migrate our workforce, and today we have close to about the 86% of our organization working out of their own four walls, is that we have gained confidence in our customers. And now they are kind of telling us that, hey, or asking us, saying is that, will you be able to handle more calls for us? Will you be able to, handle more processes for us? And for that matter, therefore, at least in our organization, we are still continuing to hire, we are still continuing to ramp. Yes, everything has today gone digitally. So, and for me, what I think is that what is important is for people to very quickly get adapted to how to become comfortable with digital platform. And I'll give you my own a little bit of anecdotal experience. So I have been doing trainings and facilitating sessions globally for the last almost like 2 decades, and all of that has been instructor led. So I've actually got people in a classroom, sometimes 15, sometimes 45, sometimes 200, you know. And 3 days back is that even after taking a training on Microsoft Teams, I actually went to deliver a virtual sales training, and boy, what a struggle that it was. So, I guess that it'll be important for all of us who were relying on, this in-person, in-premise kind of work environment or educational environment. If everything is going to be digital, 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 then first thing is how quickly that we can get comfortable with technology and the digital platforms. The other is how do we also become, I would say, digital smart professionals, because it calls for different kind of skills. It calls for different kind of etiquettes and all that. So good. That was quite a, I'm saying is that what we are saying once again is that, for each of us, the future is definitely going to be tough, challenging, but at the same time, it is going to throw a lot of opportunities for us. It is all on us in terms of how do we take this opportunity to plan, invest in ourselves, and continue to stay relevant. Okay. Now, therefore, another question that comes to my mind is, and I'm sure that the audience is going to look for this answer is, how do I assess myself in terms of that? Where is it? You did definitely give an idea, saying is that use some platforms that have been offered to us for free, complimentary, and all that stuff, and then decide which one to go where to put in the money. But how do I really assess in terms of which should be 1, 2, 3 areas where I should actually be investing my time, energy, focus, and even capital? So over to you two.
Before that we go there, Avesh, I'm just looking at some questions which has come, and some interesting thing. Devashish Chakravarti, co-founder, CEO, Mainstays Incubator. He says, what is the advice to startups in the space of online education? What sectors should they focus on? How should they differentiate their online engagement with the students? So thankfully, this is something we do, and I can speak with experiences. One idea has been, of course, you know, uh, you know, increase your outreach, increase your focus, increase your investment, increase your resources and energy to reach out to maximum you know uh, uh, target base, maximum amount of learners. For the simple fact is, as I said earlier, this is the time where most of the people will look to diversify. Most of the people will look to acquire different sort of skill sets. I may not be, I don't know your focus areas. I may not have a specific answer to the sectors they should focus on. But needless to say, that as Sudhindra or Avish mentioned, that services will bounce back. 7 billion population will need services. So that's going to happen. Take example of IT, where IT will cut slab, but that doesn't take away from the fact that data engineering or big data or AI are going to be mainstay of most of what IT sector does. So that's going to happen. Uh, Another question I see from Professor Jagdale, and I will let Avesh or Suchindra come in there, and probably Suchindra can answer that question on the online part. That does should university start talking about online admission, entrance, delivery, and so on.
Okay, so to answer that question, I think students come to a university for three different things. One is just the core learning, right? Which is one part. The second part is about getting interpersonal skills because those are becoming more and more important as things grow. And probably the third and the most important thing is the entire social and peer learning. You learn from other people's experiences. You probably learn by being in certain situations. There's more like an experiential part of the learning. The problem with a pure online system is that you will only have the teaching part probably move to an online platform. The peer and the social learning are equally important, and those are really the kind of skills that you will use. Every time we use the term horizontal skill, none of the universities teach you horizontal skills. You always learn this by experience, by interacting with people, by understanding how industries work. Now, these are things that a pure online will probably take some time to deliver. Indian universities, as it is, have a fairly bad usage of technology. Like I said earlier, also for us, what technology means is we put our presentations online. Whoever wants to study them, please go ahead and study them without any facilitation. It doesn't work that way. You probably need to think much deeper and much more for a pure online sort of a thing. There are Australia is one of the largest hubs of education globally, and Australia is one country which is really finicky about getting external people there. So if you're getting into Australia, for example, in a normal course of time, you're not supposed to be carrying any plant, any sort of a mud from mountaineering, and none of that is allowed to be taken into Australia. You can't carry food items from abroad to Australia. It's that strict. And so they get almost 10 lakh international students a year. Now what they are trying to do is they're literally shutting down. What they have done is they've decided we will move the first semester of this year online, but then they have redone the entire curriculum so that the first year does not have any practicals. They pushed the second semester theory things also into the first semester so that theory could be done. In India's context, how do you run practicals today? You don't have simulators. So still, it's a good thing. We are probably moving in the right direction, but we are still pretty far from what a pure play online university would look like.
I guess it is also, just to add. I guess it is also about the existing capability in higher education institutions and familiarity with online and ICT. That how do you actually build content, or how do you use content, how do you use platform, how do you effectively track data, capture learner centric data, bring a learner focused environment, and eventually keeping your eye during the whole thing on the learning outcome. So these are some of the real world challenges which universities will have. The way we see it, it is also about acquiring those capabilities and hope, and maybe the silver lining in the whole dark cloud will be where universities will eventually start taking this far more seriously than they ever have. If you notice, Dr. Zagdale, MHRD has a couple of days back come out with a notification that online Padhega India or something like that, and they've asked for people's suggestion that how could we integrate ICT among higher education institutions, and please do come ahead with your suggestion. I also received a notification from one of the state higher education department, which on behest of MHRD has been sending a whole list of ICT tools and the exact solutions which higher education institutions could use. So this again will be intermittent. I don't see that happening going online completely because it will need a complete transformation in terms of people, in terms of capability, in terms of infrastructure. And while you have some 7-8 universities today which have been approved for online, one very aggressive stand government of India can take is open a special window and ask universities to apply and give them an approval in 7 days to go online. Basic, at least as long as they meet minimum 5-7 things in terms of go ahead. Second thing would be PPP. where they allow them to partner with private guys and build online capabilities. But these are yet to be seen. I guess if you are right, if this continues, then probably that's the next measure, at least for education sector, they will have to take.
So I also have a couple of things to say here. So Dr. Jagdale, in fact, if you look at the corporate world today, so we have already started to kind of do all of our, so just like you say, in your case, it is admissions to classroom to finishing school, etc., and all that. For us, it is recruitment, onboarding, training, and also ensuring is that we manage people, in a virtual world. So it is possible. It is possible to do it that way because today you have some very smart digital platforms where you can almost, you can never replicate 100% in classroom kind of an experience, but you can go very near to that. So like even if I talk about Air Meet, and I was kind of very happy to see some of the functionalities that they have, that you can join in your tables, you can just have a conversation with your table mates, and then you can join the main meeting room. And likewise, Microsoft Team or Zoom has today that where you can split people into breakout rooms. They can converse there, they can discuss, they can have discussions there, they can create their own flip chart, whiteboards, etc., and all that stuff. So and the other thing that I've, so it is possible, to actually do all of that. The second bit is in terms of that, and then this is, don't take me wrong, but I'm saying is, while Gaurav did mention is that the government, NHRD and all are coming with, these notifications. My request to the academia is, what is stopping you from becoming the leader in this? Why don't you start this initiative and take the lead, let the world follow behind you? Because that is going to definitely give you an edge. And again, yes, there will be financial implications to all of that. And yes, one can possibly, as Gaurav said, is that look at the public private partnership, and we can go that way. So I hope those are a few of our thoughts here to your question. And let's see. So, okay, some time back, and we are going to again get back to the questions, and I'm also keeping a note on the time. So, since we talked about both, that yes, there is going to be challenge and opportunities, there is some amount of pessimism in the air. At the same time, there is a lot of optimism, I would say, and I'm a born optimist, so I'll definitely keep on saying this, is that there's a lot of optimism, because it is going to be a shift the way economies, countries, and the corporate and the academic institutions are working today versus how they are going to work tomorrow. How is it that people should keep themselves self-motivated in these times? So let me kind of make this question a little personal first and ask Gaurav and Suchindra. Did you in the last 5 weeks experience any moment of downtime, I would say? And when I mean downtime is that when you were low on your energy, your enthusiasm, and your motivation. And how did you deal with that? And so let's start with you first, and then you can possibly give some, I would say, tips and suggestion for the larger audience.
Sure, 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 sure. I don't know how many of you heard the noise in the background. My little one was shouting. So these are the changed realities, and I guess, and I'm glad, I wish you said that this is about adapting, and this is about embracing change. The fact is, it has not been easy for most of us on this call, I think, without exception, and I will speak for everyone on that note. So, that's one, and second is professionally, I'm sure it has been a distressing time for most of the people, because we are connected to the you know macroeconomic factors. We are very much connected to what is happening around the world. Our businesses are interconnected. I do well, you do well, and vice versa. And I guess that's how every sector, every industry, every company is intertwined. So these have been difficult times, and moving 1,000 people one day. We decided that we should move 1,000 people from work from home, where we have a large Salesforce team which works on call. Pretty much like, moving a BPO back home where people should work from their home. So extremely difficult. And then going back and telling 1,000 people that be rest assured that your jobs are secured. As a firm, we decided that we will not let go people. Whether however business looks like, we will hold them. We will revisit this in July, but this quarter we will not. So going back and giving that sense of security, and so that has been extremely difficult at many levels. Third, I guess no one knows, as someone rightly pointed out, no one knows what next, and I guess that uncertainty is little distressing, because it's pretty much a fact that what is happening today is most likely precursor to the financial depression, or the financial recession. So the after effects and the ripples will be seen in times to come. So it has not been an easy time, but I guess what I suggested earlier to people, that you have to be on your toes, you have to be at your best, and however cliched it may sound, but that's the best we can do. You and me may not go and control virus and economy and GDP and how will it pan out, but you and me definitely have control on how you and me react to this. So that will be my personal take, my personal journey through this.
All right. Okay. Suchendra, what about you?
So I think the biggest takeaway for me, initially when we started, and I think I'll probably take a step back when we used to work normally, right? We always have this problem, for my family, and honestly, this is a question that I keep asking myself as a consultant as well. Kya karte kya? Right.
You're
This is
not alone.
Yeah, but the family used to ask this. I was literally living out of suitcase 4 days a week, and this was a question which came up pretty often. Right? Uh, at the same time, today when I've spent 5 weeks, 4 weeks at home, we were still working, right? So one, I think for my family and for myself, it has been a good understanding of each other's worlds. And if I was to just now extrapolate it to my working life, right, as a manager, as a team leader, I think at many points of time we do become literally dictatorial, right? I think staying at home for the last 5 weeks has made me realize maybe the other person's context in a much better way. I see how much toiling does my wife do at home. How difficult it is to raise kids. We give them that credit, but it is difficult. I've got 2 kids, 4 and 6, and it is difficult for my wife to do that. uh, at the same time, she also realizes that my job is probably something which is pretty intellectual, requires a lot of thinking before I speak even a sentence, right? I think this appreciation of each other's context, each other's worldview is something which is the positive side for me of this lockdown. And I'm not even getting into there are multiple personal things, much better family, much integrated families. We're probably reducing our consumerism. All that is probably beaten to death. So I'm not even getting into that. But this appreciation is something that will probably continue with me even when I go back to my brick and mortar office, because my team will probably face the same problems. And we were, maybe not even appreciative of that.
All right, great insights and great inputs here. So, and let me bring in my things. So, if you look at, yes, I've also been living out of my suitcase right from the time that I started my career, and this is the first time where I think that I have been locked down for so many days consecutive. Okay, and it is only after a many years that five of us, which includes my mom, my wife, my two teenage kids, uh, one over the teenage, one still a teenager, and five of us living 24 into 7 into 365. And over and above is that the work hours and personal hours are kind of completely blurred. Okay, there is no concept of the weekdays. There's no concept of a work day. There's no concept of a work hour, because, and again, since we operate out of 7 different countries, and our day starts with when the sun rises in one and sets only when the sun sets in the other country. So I guess for me, I wouldn't say so much is that I didn't even, I think I have had the time to really think about in terms of is that what's going to happen to me, or what's going to happen to so much the world outside and all that. It's at this stage, it is more like the preoccupation with how is it that we are going to continue to support the lives and livelihood of people, who are possibly dependent on us, that just keeps one's going. The other thing is in terms of is that, just before the this particular disruption, is that I don't know, it was somewhere God's plan for us, is that we went for a health retreat and we came back after a week, and I continue to kind of do my 1 hour of yoga each day, every day, and even as I keep on sitting for long hours on this chair, I kind of get up, I do some exercise and sit and all that stuff. So that kind of is helping me. The other bit is in terms of is that stop reading too much of news on coronavirus, because and even if I have to go and read, then I'd rather rely on very authentic source like the government, I would say, agencies, whether it is Indian or the overseas. The second is in terms of look at the LSB or the McKinsey, ENY, and Wall Street Journal and things like that. News, I guess that in our house we only play it once or twice in a day. That's it, and mostly is a national news for 5 minutes and maybe the Bangalore news for 5 minutes, and that's it. And then try to find out something positive, in the day that can keep one kind of motivated and cheered up for that matter. So that's about me. In fact, if you would have some tips for the folks, specifically the young generation, which many a time that I should not generalize it, but then I definitely see evidences of that who really do not believe in too much in, let's say, spirituality. And I'm not saying like worshiping any god, but I'm just saying is meditation or breathing exercise and stuff like that. What tips will you have for that generation?
Uh, I will give a real life tip to others. Others will ask a question and about his internship, and then I may come back. So he's talking about he seems to be doing his master's sales and marketing out of data, and the internship is a problem. So this is a true fact, others. I don't think you are alone. And the good part is that one, your internship date has been increased till December 2020, if I'm not mistaken, which usually gets over by mid of the year. So you still have some time to find an internship opportunity as far as your academic credit goes. Second, there are so many virtual internship opportunities available. So my suggestion would be look for those virtual internship opportunities, because thankfully, as Avesh said, most of the companies have done BCP, business continuity process, and have moved to work from home and work from a virtual environment. So there is more than enough realization that can internship be done in virtual environment, and answer is pretty much yes. So my suggestion would be look for that. And as far as the question Aves asked, I will rather side with the audiences. I am part of millennial borderline Gen Z. I call myself Gen Z. So let me, so we will sail through. I guess my only take would be that. A question is for you, Aves. I guess it's a very good question. Dr. Rusdi has been asking, she's director IILM. How does one assess oneself? I guess it would be the
Right. Yeah. So, and I was also just looking at that question. So, um, Dr. Rushdie or Dr. Neela, there are a couple of, I would say, again, it all gets related to what is it that you're trying to assess, whether it is your technical skills or whether you are looking at your behavioral skills. And both of these are, and even functional skills. And all these three are kind of important for being successful in any role that you want to kind of, take yourself into. Now, there are a lot of, I would say, assessments that are available at the marketplace, be it through Aspire Minds, be it through SHRMs. There are other tools on behavior like the DISC, MBTI, etc. There is the Big Five. There is, Chally. So there are multiple and a host of assessments that are available. There are today assessments on speech, computer speech. So Versant is another one whereby you can actually look at both. Where I'm going with this is that please don't only assess yourself on the technical and functional skills. It is extremely important, and it will be more important today to look at your behavioral as well as your competencies around communication. And when I say communication, it's a motherhood word. So, what about your listening skills? Because you will not be actually meeting people so frequently. You will be just like we are connected for the first time ever in a virtual world, and we are listening to each other. How do we listen to each other? How do we therefore demonstrate acknowledgement? How do we demonstrate empathy? How do we ask great questions? How do we kind of present our solutions or our answers and response, which is very specific and concise? How is it that we are able to overcome conflict without even rubbing it on the wrong side, where you take it personal and all that? So there are a lot of, I would say, assessments that are available. If people want to connect with me later, I'm more than happy to kind of give you some links and all that stuff. But today, Lord Google has, or Madam Quora has all the answers. If you click there and you get a whole host. Just one more thing that I would like to say here is that the other thing is on listening is, for your assessment, ask the people who know you the best. If you are in a student, then ask your professors, ask your fellow students, because that's what Suchindra was also referring to. Okay, and listen to them with a pinch of salt and pepper. Doesn't matter. Okay, and be willing to kind of take constructive feedback in your stride. Don't just only look for endorsement and affirmation. It is important, but don't just only go with that, because that's going to throw you, it's not showing you the real mirror. Ask your colleagues, ask your family members, so get a 360-degree view on yourself. And the other thing is, also follow your passion. This is the time when you should assess yourself in terms of, if there was something that's taken a back seat, can I bring that along with maybe whatever profession that I'm going to use? So a long drawn answer, but I hope that I've been able to give you some insights there. And as I said, happy to connect later. I also see two things here. One is my time watch, which says 2:59. So we're almost on the hour, and we have just about 30 minutes for the question.
Yeah.
And I see also the avatar of questions, Suman, coming onto the screen, prompting us that we should move with that.
Yeah, we have a couple of rays, so
I see that. So why don't we bring folks inside the
yeah,
meeting?
yeah. So we will start with Shekhar Sanyal here, who's the country head of IET, and then we'll go on to Anish.
Hey, hi. Avesh, Gaurav, Suchindra, thank you so much for such an engaging and very informative session that we have had. I'm sure we are all going to learn a lot from it. My question comes from a very personal view.
You are obliged. You on a lighter, Shekhar, you are on a lighter note. You are obliged to say that. So yeah.
No, I really mean it. Yeah, no, I've been listening to you guys right from the beginning, and it's been really interesting. And I've had my son and my wife listening as well in the background, so because they found it engaging and informative as well. Now, my question essentially comes from my background, personal background. I've got a 18-year-old son who's just turning 18 in a couple of months. He is in his just given his 12th boards, and he's still got one paper left. We don't know when that's going to happen. And he's applying for various courses. So he's a commerce student. So he's looking at psychology, he's looking at law, he's looking at commerce. But suddenly, with this whole thing, neither he nor we know whether that's the route to go, and that's what will get him to where he wants to go. Is the traditional route of going through the normal courses still going to work in the post-COVID world, or are there the change which is coming is going to completely disrupt the way careers will be made in the future? And that's essentially my question is to all three of you. What advice or what inputs would you give to a person or somebody who's just starting off their higher education and looking at building a career from there?
So, Sekhar, let me take a stab on that, and good to see you.
Yeah, good to
Most
see you
of the time
too.
we see each other virtually only these days. So one is that there have been some assessment tools that have been available. Like there is one called as Career Shakti, there is another called as the Kano Report, and all that stuff. And that is kind of being very widely used by students in order to look at in terms of where their core strengths lie, and also what are the connected, I would say, professions, or I would say avocations, hobbies that they can pick and choose. Now, yes, it would have been possibly you know, more relevant to the, 3 months back time or the pre-COVID times. But at the same time, what is encouraging to know is that the behavioral scientists who are actually, got these assessments in place, they are already kind of trying to tweak and customize that to the post-pandemic time. Okay, so look out for those, because these companies also understand is that what was good for yesterday is no more good for today and tomorrow. So they are trying to kind of do the customization, give them possibly a couple of more weeks, and you can see those coming out. So that will be my take on this
Thanks, Avesh.
one.
Any
Indra, Gaurav, any insights from you?
Yeah, so I totally agree with Avesh saying, but just want to add another perspective to even before this pandemic, uh, there's a lot of talk about future of work. There is a lot of talk about what is this going to be like with the industry 4.0 coming in. Now, if you see the US, an average worker in US today actually changes 4 careers during his work life. Over a 30-year period or a 25-year period, he's actually working for very different vocations, unlike a very linear journey that we have in India. Even that is changing for Indian students as well. So I see a lot of people, for example, who pass out with me in Bangalore. They went to a full-time job, turned entrepreneurs, went back. If the venture didn't work out, they went into a very different sector altogether. You know, so with the pandemic coming in, I think this is going to get further accelerated. That's my personal view, because a lot of people who probably get retrenched, those industries are retrenching, will be retrenching people because there's no demand, and that's going to be mostly across the industry. A lot of people will move into horizontal roles, like Gaurav said, from EPC to a real estate, which is a shift in the industry itself or the role itself. You want to say something, Avesh?
Yeah, I think there is some echo in the voice, so I think that is what even Avish would want to say.
Okay. Sorry.
Avesh, you are muted.
Sorry, I was saying is that if Shekhar, you and Suman, if you can go on mute, and possibly
Yeah,
that. Thank you.
sure.
So this transition from one industry to another and one career from another will still continue and probably get accelerated. So for somebody like an 18-year kid who's looking at a college, and I think this would also be applicable to people who are just passing out of college right now. Today I believe the most important thing is to gain experiences of a real world industry. Even when you're getting into a college, it probably, yes, it does matter to a big extent what degree you do. But if you see today, you have engineers working in sales jobs. In fact, most of the IT freshers are getting into investment banks. So there's a bit of fungibility which is available, and it's important to make use of that fungibility. Today, if you're a final year student, if you're not getting a job in the IT industry, which was your choice, probably internships in another industry might be helpful. You can look at e-commerce, you can look across the board. And so, this disruption is actually going to change that. What is important is to not lose sight of the core skills which are required. The technical skills could still be, over a period of time. For some people, it will take 6 months to get those skills. People have learned Python. At my time, there used to be something called as NIIT. All good engineers used to, do BTech in the morning and go to NIT centers in the evening, and where they, rub shoulders with people who are doing BCom and people who are doing BS. So I think you always have that upskilling opportunity available. I guess Gaurav and Upgrad give a lot of people that opportunity, irrespective of whether they're engineers or BComs or BAs. So all of those will be available. What may not be available to you is, things like interpersonal skills, things like how do you understand what's the next thing coming in. I guess those are the key skills which will be required in the future. How do you break problems down to much smaller, manageable chunks? How do you try and answer questions? How do you empathy, for example? All of these are the skills of the future, and I don't think they're going to go away anyways because of the pandemic. If anything, they will just get strengthened.
Thank you, Suchendra. Gaurav, do you have any inputs for Shekhar?
So I guess my answer is I don't know. because I guess I'm as clueless as many that whether physical centers will cease to exist, malls will cease to exist, hotels will cease to exist. The only way I see IIT Madras closing if Taj Bombay also closes, and an ambience in Gurgaon and a forum in Bangalore also closes. So then we are talking about real issues here, and I guess I'm far too underqualified to be able to say whether that's going to happen or not. We don't know. I guess my answer.
Right. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. One of the things that I'm taking away from what you guys told me essentially is that is important to hone up our human skills. The other skills we are anyway learning, and they will continue to probably change over a period of time. But the human skills, which are inherent to us connecting, listening, talking, interpersonal skills, that seems to have come up again and again, and that's something that does not get taught in universities and educational institutions, and perhaps those are the ones that we need to keep cognizance of. Is one thing that I'm taking away from this. But thank you, all three of you. Thank you very much for that wonderful thing, and I'm sure we'll
Pleasure.
hear a lot of things as we go along. So,
Thanks for that question, Shekhar. And I know there's somebody else who's raised a hand and you want to bring
Yeah, yeah.
that individual human. But before you do that, I also saw a question which is from a colleague of mine, by the name of Martina. And if Martina was in front of me, then my usual style would have been, "What do you think, Martina? How is it that the culture of organizations are going to change?" Unfortunately, I don't have that privilege today. So, for me, the answer to that question is very simple. One way that the culture of the organization is going to change is that trust will be of prime importance. Trust from the side of the organization towards an employee who you are not seeing in person, and you're trusting that the individual is actually on the job in the required hours and is contributing to the customers, I would say, business. Trust also from the from the leaders and managers, that you're not going to be breathing down the neck of the employee and policing them every minute and every second in terms of what they are doing. So I think that is one, I would say, key area where I see that the organization cultures will change. On the employee front, it will also be in terms of how to demonstrate integrity at the topmost order. Okay, instead of and I've heard a lot of stories in terms of how in the pre-pandemic era, where a lot of people were having the luxury of working from home, what kind of means and measures and jugaad that they had invented themselves just to demonstrate that they were actually on the work, but possibly not contributing at that particular. So that's my take. Over to you, Suman. I think you need to get in. Hopefully, Martina, I gave you answer to your question.
We'll bring on Anish now, who had raised a hand for quite some time.
Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Hi,
Anish.
Anish.
Thank you for allowing me to raise a question and all. It's been like memorable times hearing you all and sitting on your points and understandings. So my question is regarding, like, if I since I do a lot of coaching and mentoring of a lot of people who are like not related to my work, and like when I take them up into certain portfolios, and then when I explain them about the process manifolds of it, why is it like people after that get out of that view and then they portray their own self beliefs and then self understanding instead of adapting to the questions that I raise, or even like I ask them to follow as per the you can say the communication standards, or like even the communication, the you can say the portfolios, or even like what are the measures that are taken, like if I speak to someone, for example, if I'm speaking with you, I need to know like what you're talking about and what you're saying. But when I'm saying it to someone else who doesn't know about this, and then again he contradicts from that point and then places his or her own point, how to one improvise or how to one overcome that? That's my question.
So, Anish, Avesh here, and I don't think I clearly understood your question. So, I will first kind of request my fellow panelists that in case if they have got it, then they will like to take stab on it, or else we will like you to repeat that question for us in a very concise manner. So, let me first check with Suchindra and Gaurav. Did you get that question?
Not very clearly. The pretty broken.
Okay, so then help us understand, because we'll
Okay,
be
for example,
happy to answer it.
You can also
Anish,
try to probably go off the video, Anish, because I think it's taking up most of your bandwidth, and just put the audio on and ask the question.
Anish,
Go on.
Anish, my request would be, my request would be, don't give the background. Just shoot the question. One sentence, just shoot.
yeah.
So if you can repeat that question once again for us.
Okay. Okay. My question is like when I'm saying something about, or like when I'm coaching someone regarding a particular work, and then again when that person contradicts from it and comes out with a new sort of a communication skill, how would someone adapt or how would someone improvise over it without getting to know like how can he benefit or I benefit from that? That is my question.
Okay, so let me kind of make an attempt here. First and foremost is what I heard you saying is that when I tell people, all right.
Yeah.
My thing will be is that have you explored, instead of telling, asking them to do the same thing in a question format rather than telling them?
Yeah, first of all, when I coach someone or when I mentor someone, I first of all go through all the new things that are happening right now, or what are the things that are going to be happening in the near future. But when someone comes out with another option or other opportunities, and when he or she gives us that information, how would someone accepting me or anyone else apart from me adapt or improvise over it so that both of us get benefited from it instead of being like a one shot question and a one shot answer? How would that be possible?
So see again, and I'm again kind of making an attempt, and then I'll hand it over to the other two distinguished panelists. My thing is, because I'm also a coach and I do a lot of coaching myself, is in terms of is that as a coach, to what extent is the discussion and conversation a two-way conversation? As a coach, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is my way or the highway. And please don't for a minute or a second assume is that I'm saying is that Anish says it's my way and not your way. Right? I'm just saying is that sometimes a coach also needs to demonstrate that flexibility and first looks at the merit of what possibly the coachee is saying, and if that merit is much more stronger and sounder than your own merit, then demonstrate the flexibility of accepting it. The other thing is what I said is maybe possibly instead of, you see, in the entire coaching thing, the objective is making the other individual realize that yes, he or she needs to change his or her thought process or action. And people will only do that when they see it themselves versus somebody telling them. So that will be my 2 cents on it. Over to you, the other two gentlemen.
Nothing to add. I guess we can move.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Anish. We've got Rajiv Bhatnagar here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Before that, there was a long question, and I think that was Sriram from Amrita School of Business, and he was asking a question on favor of the entire MBA students.
Yeah.
After the month of June, there may be a placement process will be held in different companies for us, depend on the situation which is prevalent today. There may be a definite question which will be asked regarding how you may tackle the situation. What are your strategy to overcome the company from shutdown? Please suggest us that now we can approach this question and what are the possible response we need to take part from our side. Okay, so we are just now got into the finishing school. So either of you who would like to kind of give some tips here, or you
Read
want to
about
take the
BCP. I can just read about business continuity process. Read about 5 examples of what 5 different companies have done. There's more than enough online. You will have your answer.
And if you want to go specific there, then go to Gallup, go to McKinsey, go to Ernst and Young, go to Howard. This thing, all these articles are available. You have enough information available there. I hope we gave you a short, quick answer to that.
Yeah. Rajiv, you can ask your question now.
Yeah, I might be asking a completely different question from what we're discussing. It's more around how we are coping with the infra at this point, with the lots of people using the bandwidth and everything. What your feel like, and is government is doing around this bit, or are other organizations coming around it?
So, Gaurav Suchindra.
So I guess this has been an unprecedented usage change for any sort of, if you talk about a digital infrastructure. Yes, most of the infrastructure pipes, our network pipes are pretty chock-a-block. Thankfully, India had a fairly large amount of dark pipe available when Reliance came in. They just set up enough and more infrastructure, more than that was required. So today, that infrastructure possibly is coming in very, very handy for India. At the same time, the government has also asked some of these very huge content providers to start streaming on standard SD content rather than HD content, and I think that's been happening across the world. So the news items are trying to do that. So today, if I'm looking at an Amazon or a Netflix, I can only do fairly standard SD content. And actually, if you see, this is probably going to be one. We spoke about the sectors in the beginning. I'm just taking a very long shot, but this could be actually one sector which will see a huge upswing. All of India has got enough and more dark cable, which is a story which is getting challenged now. So a lot of probably new net cables, new fibers will have to be laid out if India has to move to a truly digital economy, which will probably happen in some time to come.
Mhm.
Anything that you would want to add, Gaurav, because you really are into content play. You
Well,
require a lot.
to be fair, ICT is one. ICT is one, and I will not say that ICT has been able to. I guess my network is as good or as bad as it was earlier. More towards the bad side than the good side. So that's one. But I guess the way I see Rajiv, infrastructure is also about health infrastructure. Infrastructure is also about education infrastructure. And how law administration infrastructure, others have come together to be able to meet, or rather the supply chain of essential goods, whether we have enough or more to be able to cope up with that. So to be fair, I guess to everyone, I guess we know what is the problem. I guess the only difference I have there is it was too sudden. It was beyond most of the people's imagination, and I don't think we have too many great examples of people being able to manage at this scale elsewhere, that we could go and say, I see you joining from UK, and probably we can talk about UK, but it has been equally good or bad there as well. So I guess people have been just overwhelmed and caught off guard.
Mm. Yeah, again, that's a
So-
point. We've been facing a lots of challenge while connecting to India offices itself, and I think the situation has added more load into that infrastructure. So worrying again, we've never been ready for this kind of issue. Not sure how it's progress, and if this situation continues, how I think things will smoothen out a bit more.
So,
Yes, yes,
Rajiv, in fact,
and BCP,
sorry.
BCP is all right. I'm sorry, Alish can add, but BCP is pretty much all right. I guess most of the guys have been able.
Hmm.
Sure. So Rajiv, in fact, I was just coming in at please no way, though I definitely fond of my country, is that this is not just an issue as far as India is concerned. Like we have operations again in many countries. In US today, we definitely have issues about the bandwidth and all that. So while the government is doing its own bit in terms of increasing the bandwidth, etc., what we are doing is that we are kind of taking some steps on our own in terms of is that when not needed, people should not get into VPN connections. They should avoid video connections. They should go rather and use the virtual video desktop interface and things like that. So those are certain things, and I completely agree with Gaurav. Is that and if you ask my personal experience, there is nothing which is untowards or different than 3 months back. I'm getting the same kind of bandwidth. I would say, for that matter, I would compliment my service provider is that we have been fortunate in the part of the Bangalore city that we live in, is that we at least have had no issues with that. But I'm sure is that the governments will be investing in each part of the world, and we'll see things improving there. I hope we gave you the answer. I also saw another question coming in from an L&D specialist, which is an ex-colleague of mine. And is asking in terms of is that those of us who are influencing careers and skills of employees, how do we keep ourselves updated? Well, first and foremost thing is uh, quickly get yourself up onto speed of influencing life virtually. So get comfortable with the technology tools. That's number one. I guess that it's this juncture. Few things on top priorities for individuals is how to stay productive while working from home, how to stay engaged while working from home, how to stay motivated while working from home. And then for the other set of people who are managing them, how do you engage, connect, lead people that you lead remotely? So I guess those will be the specific priorities at this juncture. And thereafter, on midterm to long term, just keep an eye on all what is coming on from all these various agencies that we have listed out, be it SHRM, Gallup, McKinsey, Harvard, ASTD, TD, all of that. Okay. And that'll be more than enough. All right, we are almost like 6 minutes to it, and I see, hey, being a senior at my campus, I work with around 125 juniors who look up to seniors like me for. Sorry, that somebody else posted a longer question. Any suggestions to student like us to align the organizational goals to that of every individual in the student community? So, Keyur, one thing that I'm not very sure, are you a senior still at the campus, or you are a senior, or you are an alumni who has already joined a corporate? Still in the campus, okay. Any suggestions for to student like us to align the organizational goals to that of every individual in the student community? Gaurav, Sujendra,
Yes.
if you got that question.
Very heavy, Keur, very heavy. Not bad. See, you have gotten our tongue.
Yeah, so let me make an attempt here, Keyur. One is that at the moment that you are saying alignment with organization, first and foremost is, as a senior, what is your connect with the organization to understand in terms of what is their short term, mid term, and long term priorities. All right, you got to have a very clear understanding of what is it that the corporates need, and possibly then kind of communicate it back to your juniors and also help them to work in those areas. Okay, and again, when I say these areas, don't just and I might sound like a broken record, is that please have a mix of uh, core competencies, which is your technical functional skills, but do not please miss out in terms of the various, I would say, interpersonal behavior skills and attitude piece. Okay.
Right.
We have one more question. It is easy to quantify outputs, deliverables which are tangible, but how to quantify intangible outputs and make decision? In day-to-day working, one gets to interact and know the team. But in the current situation of virtual interaction, endless meeting, human factor seems to be less relevant. Now, those employees whose contribution are less tangible at this point in time face the risk of losing job. How to stay relevant and mitigate such risk? Very good question.
Yeah.
And again, first to my fellow panelists, and then maybe I'd like to take.
So I guess the two parts to this question, the way I look at it, I personally believe, and I'm in a fairly human-intensive industry, human factors today are more and more important, even more important than they were in a very physical sort of a world, because you're trying to, be empathetic to people at a very different location. You just have no idea what situation are they in and how are they performing. I've heard stories from people. I have my team members in Mumbai who stay in a 400 square feet house with, with their wives, and both of them working together. And their question was, how do I even get onto a call in that 400 square feet house? Now, these are problems that we never faced before. And that's where I'm saying, as a team manager or as a senior or even as that employee, he's trying his best to go through these times. So human interaction is becoming more important. Your second question, how do we become relevant? Yes, there will be retrenchments which will be happening. But if you see at the same time, there will be people who will become even more important to an organization. It is up to you to really make use of this situation. So today, people at a warehouse in Amazon, for example, he suddenly in the, it was a very mundane job. You were just doing a very mundane scheduling of how you're going to give out deliveries. Today it's becoming important because your packages, the importance of those packages, the importance of regions have become very different. There are employees in EY in Mumbai who are working with some of the CSR initiatives to get food packets delivered to other places. Now, this is not a part of their core job, but this empathy is what is going to make them very influential or very important in the longer scheme of things. So, whenever I would decide to, and I hope we never have to, as senior managers, not have to decide about who do we need to let go of. Probably this feeling of working for others will become important parameter when I start deciding about something like that.
I will add two things, Sudhindra. Very quickly from the employee side, I guess it is very important that we start being extremely cognizant and more importantly aware about some of the quantifiable, tangible outputs we want to achieve at the end of the day, at the end of a week, end of a month. So you are right that there is a problem at workplace, you not being there, and virtual environment recognition is not there, which may lead to job losses and so on, and communication has gone down. So from the employee side, as I said, I'm repeating your point again. What are the two things I want to achieve today, and can I quantify it? And so that we are extremely aware of our input versus output. So that prioritization and that awareness is important. From the employer side, I believe that degree of awareness is happening, and more conversation happens among HR leaders and top leaders are happening. That let's take the factor in fact that this guy is working out of home, and how can the in-person bias and the conversation bias can be taken out, and can we be very objective the way we evaluate people. So the I guess the onus is both the ways. It is not only on the employer but on the employee as well.
Great. So we are almost on the hour, and before we conclude, I think there's just two questions, and I would like to only give one word response to that. To Aparna, in fact, I think our fellow diversify. Don't really at this juncture look at whether this job is of any social significance or not. That specifically for the administrative staff, diversify, get skills in any of these areas. Okay, and take that. For these another one in terms of IIM and IIT students job offer has been revoked. Please go to LinkedIn. There is a wonderful post by alumni of IIT who went through this entire experience in 2008 and 2009. Okay, and today works for Amazon, and has also kind of further graduated from ISB. So that is what I'll say. Now, in conclusion, I hope that what we are saying here and what my fellow panelists are kind of endorsing is that with challenges comes a lot of opportunities. This is the time when we have to really reinvest in ourselves and invest with much more, I would say, in a much more focused manner. Take advantage or capitalize on the next 3 months of complimentary offers that are coming from all kinds of, I would say, content provider, assessment providers, etc. Find your true north. Okay, at the same time, don't just take on to that true north, but also see as to how you can develop your horizontal skills. And you know, economies, countries, companies, societies have emerged out of all of these. We are sure that we are going to emerge out of this one too. So keep your head held high, look at for the positives, and continue to invest in yourself. I hope this time has been productive for each one of you, and thank you for providing us the opportunity. It was indeed a great pleasure. Over to you, Suman.
Yeah, I think we have had a wonderful session today. Thank you to each one of you, Avesh, Gaurav, Suchindra, and thanks to everyone who could join. We have seen a massive turnaround today, and I hope the session has been able to, give you those kind of insights and benefits. Whatever questions that could not be answered, we would take those questions up and we will send them to these speakers, and we will share their answers with you guys. One thing I would want to remind you before we leave is IT Digital Conversations will continue, every Friday or in some of the days of the week, bi-weekly. And I would ask and request all of you to watch out for this space for more such interactions. In the meanwhile, within the next 120 minutes, we would send you a thank you mail and a feedback mail. What we would request all of you attendees is to send in your feedback, because it is extremely important for us as well as for the AME team to understand what kind of feedback that you guys give for us to improve. And post receiving those feedback from you guys, we will be able to share the link of this webinar session with you guys. It's a recorded link, so that you can share it and you can see it, you can view it any point of time. I'm sure it will be helpful. We will be only able to share the link with the people who send us the feedback, because that will help us track the kind of attendees that we had. So with that, thank you again, everybody. Thank you so much. People can
Suman,
continue.
Suman,
Yeah.
just one thing. So before you hand over, I think I like this particular post from uh, Dr. Chaya Sole from Others Hospital. If fate hands you a lemon, make lemonade. All right. So thank you on that note, Suman. Thank you, everybody. Hey, thank you so much, Gaurav and Suchindra. It's been wonderful. I'm looking forward to the opportunity where we connect in person also.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks for today. Have a lovely day and a lovely weekend. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, guys.